Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. We got Jeff Stein on. He's going to give us an update on where the coronavirus relief bill stands. We also have a guy named Jim Higdon on. He's going to talk about the state of cannabis legalization across the country. But we wanted to start with the latest updates on the impeachment trial, part 2.
That's right. So the House impeachment managers presented their second day of evidence yesterday. It was kind of the fulsome case with some never-before-seen footage. They were trying to tie former President Trump's then speech to the actions that happened on Capitol Hill. One of the most, shocking and really glaring parts of the entire demonstration was actually the release of some security footage that had not yet been seen. The one that really caught our eye was Officer Goodman. He's the famous officer who actually led the mob away from the place where the senators were being kept. Actually seems to have saved Senator Mitt Romney from wandering right into that crowd moments before they actually broke through. Let's take a listen to that.
Officer Goodman passes Senator Mitt Romney and directs him to turn around in order to get to safety.
I mean, it's pretty stunning. And just so you know, the mob is just right down that hallway. I mean, just really literally steps away. And there was a lot of security camera footage that, Mitt Romney had not seen this footage
he
before.
had no idea that even happened. He didn't know how close he was.
He had no idea. He was reportedly really shaken up by it, understandably so, and had an opportunity to personally thank Officer Goodman for potentially saving him from bodily harm. And look, if you watched it, it was pretty searing. I mean, the security camera footage, there was a moment with Chuck Schumer that was similarly a close call.
And Mike Pence.
Mike Pence, similarly a close call. They tied also, at the very time that all this is going down, the president is sending out a tweet attacking Mike Pence. And that's a key part of the case. Also, reportedly, understandably, the Pence-Trump relationship is far from mended. You can understand why. He's there with his family, and the president is inciting a mob against him.
And never called him to see how he was. He didn't talk to him for days afterwards.
And I want to say, too, there's, some chatter online about, this is all blown out of proportion. They were just blowing off steam and running around and, breaking windows, but no one really got hurt. There were only a few people that died. I mean, if you don't think that type of mob mentality can lead to real violence and death, you're fooling yourself. People did literally die. I mean, when you saw this footage of the way that they were attacking officers and just this total mob mentality had taken over, I think watching that yesterday became clear how close some of these lawmakers were to real bodily harm. So it was well presented. It was searing watching some of this security camera footage. There was a moment, too, where they had audio from staffers in Nancy Pelosi's office who had barricaded themselves inside, and they're whispering to each other like they're searching for Nancy. And you hear them pounding on the door, trying to get in. Now, she wasn't in there, but these staffers were in the office. So this was a terrifying day for every one of these lawmakers. And I do think that the House managers have done a good job. They're going to wrap up their case today. But look, ultimately, our mind's going to be changed on the Republican side. We don't see any indication of that, except maybe around the margins. We did see Senator Cassidy.
Yeah, that was.
I think, Senator Romney may already have been inclined to convict. This probably was encouraging him further in that direction. But I don't think anyone has a realistic expectation that Trump is actually going to be convicted at this point.
Yeah, and so just to give people a wrap-up on what exactly is expected. So today is the last day of the House impeachment manager's presentation, at which they will conclude. And at that point, it's up to the Trump team in order to present a defense. Now, they will probably present a defense. We don't know the substance yet. By far, currently, they have decided not to even try to argue on the merits of it and just say that this is unconstitutional, which is the line that all GOP senators, by and large, who said that they're not going to convict, are going along with. And so they will probably present a limited defense on the constitutional grounds around impeaching a former president and now private citizen. That's largely what we can expect. Now, we don't even know yet what the timeline is. So the one current indication that it may wrap up sooner is that David Schoen, he's one of Trump's defense team, actually withdrew a request to pause the trial on Friday evening to observe the Jewish Sabbath. So what does that mean? Does it mean they think that it'll be done by Friday evening? It's possible. So it might just be a one-day defense, and then they can get to the vote, and we can move on. So it could be just a one-week trial. I think the shortest impeachment trial ever, but that's currently what we can expect to see.
Having seen these guys in action, I would say the shorter they make their arguments, their defense, probably the better.
They should just rest the defense and then move.
They should just.
I mean, they're going to win. So
well, that is the thing, is they don't actually have to do anything. So as like embarrassingly bumbling and incompetent and unable to articulate one single complete sentence they are, doesn't really matter because this cake is already baked. Yeah. So the question we really wanted to contemplate here today, since we pretty much know the way that the impeachment trial is ultimately going to go, is, look, they're not going to take the step to ban Trump from office. He's still hanging out there as the most popular figure in the Republican Party. Is he actually finished as a national political figure and a potential presidential candidate, or could he make a comeback in 2024 and have a shot not only at the Republican nomination, but ultimately again at the White House? So here's some indications of what a bad spot he's put the Republican Party in overall. And Saagar, I know you're covering this more extensively in your radar, the people who are fleeing the party. But you can see the Republican Party's favorability ratings have taken a nosedive. Democrats have actually ticked up slightly to have 48% with a favorable view, and Republican Party has dropped down to 37%. So with Trump at the helm and with this image of the Republican Party, which by all indications, they're going all in on the Marjorie Taylor Greene direction of the party, they are increasingly going to struggle to win national elections and to be able to win in swing states. I think, they're kind of, as we've been predicting, they're kind of screwed either way, because they're either losing elite support, or if they were to really break from Trump, which they're obviously not going to do, then they'd have a total backlash from the base. They're even just, if you lose a few points nationally and have a few points that move away from you and towards the Democrats, that puts you in big trouble nationally. Yeah,
and you know what's so remarkable about this, which is that Trump actually had the Republican Party at its highest favorability ever in January 2020. I know I talk about that a lot, but what was happening during that? The first impeachment trial. That was the apotheosis of Ukraine and Russiagate, which where it dominated the news. 51% was the first time in modern history, since September 2001. That the Republican Party, what happened in September 2001. So realistically, the first time since November 96 in an organic political environment that the Republican Party had a plus 50 approval rating net in the country, squandered that down to 37. So look, I have no doubts that Trump would win the GOP nomination if he wanted it. Absolutely zero. Could he win a national political election? I have no idea. Now, look, I mean, if he's up against, we talked about this yesterday, against somebody like Kamala, I think he might be able to win. It's possible. But in many ways, he's scarred a significant portion of the Republican base, more so than he ever did before. People would always be like, oh, people are done with him. That was always marginal, maybe 5%. We see in the Republican approval ratings that his approval rating is around 75. That means there's still 25% of the party, though, that isn't going to go along. They might vote for Biden again. Maybe even more so than they did in 2020. So I think that from that perspective, you have to say, on a national level, I'm not sure he could ever perform at the same level. But again, like politics is dynamic. It's really difficult to tell. And Biden, indicating that he's going to run in 2024, of course, we don't really have an idea. The White House keeps saying he is. His approval rating is very high. Let's put this up there on the screen from the New York Times. Mama says that he's at 54% giving him positive remarks. That's actually not bad. With 9 in 10 Democrats, and I actually saw a poll yesterday, Krystal, he has a 98% approval rating amongst Democrats. That's higher than Trump's approval rating ever in the Republican Party.
Wow.
But at the same time, and the reason that he's only in the 50s, is that the negative partisanship, and this just goes to show you how partisan we are now as a country, is 9 out of 10 Republicans disapprove. Right? So when you can see that level of just like the total split, that's why I have, number one, no doubt Trump would win the GOP nomination. But I don't know if he could win a national political election. Not with the GOP. You could be, like I think I've said this before, you can be a big fish in a small pond, but that pond ain't going to win.
I think you're right about that. And I do think that the longer that he is out of the presidency, the more sense of kind of relief that a lot of people have. I have to be honest with you.
It's possible, yeah.
I actually feel more relief at him being gone and quiet than I thought I would. I didn't think I would really feel all that different, to be honest with you. And I'm surprised how much it's oh my God, thank God not having to deal with this guy every single friggin' day. You know, I mean, I do. And I think a lot of people have that same sense. However, I would never count him out.
No, you can't.
I talked to Noam Chomsky recently, and he was arguing, look, Trump is a political genius.
Yeah, he is.
Think about the fact that after hundreds of thousands of Americans died in a year that was like literally one of the worst years in the history of the country, and he narrowly lost re-election.
45,000 votes.
45,000 votes go the other way in a few swing states, and you've got Donald Trump in the White House again after all of that.
And he got more votes.
After getting caught by Bob Woodward saying like, oh, this is really serious. This is nothing like the flu. And then going out and telling you, this is just like the flu. I mean, caught in all of it, like manifest destruction across the country, economic collapse, all of those things. And he still almost eked it out. So can you count this guy out? No, I would not. Which is why I thought it was really important for them to try to galvanize, to ban him from office in the future. And I know that that is a really extreme action to say, American people, you don't even have the option of voting for this people. Like, we're taking it off the table. I get that that's a really extreme action, but I also have just seen how he poisons everything. He makes the Republican Party worse, and he makes the Democratic Party worse, because all the Democratic Party has to say, if he's still hanging out there, is you can't criticize us because you're going to bring back the fascists. We don't really have to do anything except run ads about how they're QAnon and they're fascist and they're going to, come back in, and you got to be afraid, and you can't possibly ever give them a talking point, and the stakes are completely existential. And that crushes any debate about things like universal health care, about things like really fighting for that $15 minimum wage, or really making sure that people have labor rights. It just crushes all of that ability and room to maneuver. So I would never, ever count him out, because if anything was going to bring him down, it would have been this year. And if he had just gotten out one more round of checks, he'd be in the White House.
Oh yeah, he would 100%.
If he had just advocated for mail-in for his supporters to vote by mail, that's all that the difference that it would have taken. So I just think we need to be really clear-eyed about the fact, like, if you think he's just going to fade from view and it's all going to be fine, I'm not really buying into that.
Yeah, you're a fool if you think that.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, you're talking about this in your radar. Trump, I look at him a little bit differently. I think we deserve him for a lot of our mistakes over the last 30 or 40 years. And I see what we see in the country. Federal Reserve, we're going to talk about this later in the show. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says we have plus 10% real unemployment, which is higher than it ever was in the Great Recession. People failed in every single instance. And Trump failed even more than they did. But many people look at him at least as a sign of saying screw you to those people. And unless you ameliorate that hate, I mean, you're going to get something else. I really do look at him. I mean, it's cliche. He's a symptom, but he is a symptom. I mean, it's like you look at what's happening. You look at all these people. The report that you talk about in your radar. I mean, people they're on the brink a lot.
Yeah.
And all across the country. And Trump he's bad. Like, I saw a tweet on January 6th where Ross Douthat just tweeted, the orange man is in fact bad. It's true. But, some people want bad, and we do live in a democracy. So.
Well, here's the thing is you have to offer, Trump delivered on his core promise of, I'm going to piss everybody off.
And he did.
That was his core promise of, like, I'm going to make you culturally relevant, and I'm going to piss everybody off. And he delivered on that. And if you want to defeat that, you have to actually convince people that you can deliver for their material well-being and make their lives better in a concrete fashion, so that they aren't just hoping for the best of, like, well, let me at least, like, annoy and piss off all these people I hate.
There you go.
All right, we're going to tell you what's on our radars. That's next.